Another core principle of our lower body mechanics is going to be making sure that we've really mastered the split squat variation. So we've seen this come up in some of our upper body movements, even as well as some of the core and the postural movements as well. But there's going to be a time and place for working just on the split squat directly. So to make sure that I give everybody an opportunity to fully learn it, we're going to have a video dedicated just to the split squat. So remember, one of the core principles that we've talked about is that the rotation of the upper body is always going to be over the forward leaning leg. So in this particular example, I'll give you guys a side view actually. We'll have the right leg forward, and the split squat now is going to be a matter of descending into this right hip and letting myself rotate over at the same time. So I prefer to do this initially with a med ball and hugging it so that you can get really good wide posture out of your shoulders and back. So initially what we can focus on here is how good are we at sinking back into this hip and letting ourselves rotate over it. And this is going to be that load up phase of the split squat. And then one of the initial variations that we'll work on to connect to the gait cycle is going to be stepping forward. And then, as you now know, when we step forward, because the left leg is going to come forward, we're going to end finishing over that opposite leg. So we're going to step and finish over the left side. And learning how to connect the upper body movements of our spine and our shoulders with the movement of our lower bodies is going to be very fundamental. So let's make sure that we spend a lot of time and attention on this particular motion. And a couple more points of emphasis. As we sink back into the hip, initially on the split squat, early on we can keep our heels on the ground. This is going to help us feel our glutes and hamstrings a little bit more, especially if we haven't connected to those areas previously. I want you guys to feel the outside back corner of your glute really loaded up on these. So let yourself sink and descend slowly into this and feeling this glute region become as big as possible. You want to think about making this back butt cheek as big as you can. And then eventually we can get into variations where we take the heel off the ground, but we're still connected to our glute here. So even though it's the forefoot leading and the quad will be working, we're gonna have the glute driving that motion. So we can do that same variation of the forefoot leading and the heel off the ground to now drive us forward, which becomes a lot more athletic and translatable to sprinting, to jumping, to really any athletic movement. So that's gonna be one of the progressions that we follow. And then we can also do variations of this with dumbbells, for example. So you could have a dumbbell that you hold in a goblet position, and you can hold your shoulders up, which really lets you rotate over that front side, loading up a little lower, keeping your head facing forward, and then popping forward and coming up, making sure that we're driving out of this glute, extending out of the spine, but all of that power is coming from primarily that right glute that we're loading up initially.